Hey, welcome into the final edition of the Rice Football Blue and Gray Preview Show. I'm your host, Matthew Bartlett, Director and Managing Editor of the Roost, joined as always by JP Heath, voice of the Rice Owls. Joining us from Florida, is that right? How's the Sunshine State?
It's really nice. One day it was really good. One day it was not as good. Owls won that triple overtime thriller and had our hearts broken yesterday, and play again this afternoon. And thanks to both of y'all for moving up David behind the scenes and you for accommodating us in this wild schedule. But overall, long story short, I wouldn't mind moving here, but that means I'd have to give up the gig. But I really like me some Florida. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. It's funny, we've covered and watched sports long enough that we should know better than to get too happy when they win or too sad when they lose. But here we are, gluttons for punishment, back for one more.
These are the lives we live, sir, and we know what we signed up for. But you gotta stay in the moment and enjoy the wins and bounce back from the losses, right?
We didn't choose it; it chose us. Any more cliches to throw out? Win one more for the Gipper, whoever that is. We'll see. But yeah, we're talking Louisiana Tech this week, the final game of the 2021 Rice football season. Of course, coming off that tough loss in the desert. I don't know if you're moving there, but headed back to Houston for this one. And then I think the big thing that we probably have to lead up with is Senior Day. And I know that's something that is a big day every year, but it kind of feels like it has a little bit of, extra special something this year with the COVID extensions for some guys and the number of super seniors and the number of guys who kind of coincide their tenure with Mike Bloomgren's hiring and kind of the new wave of what they're trying to build. So how is this Senior Day going to be a little bit different, you think, than maybe ones we've had in the past?
It's very bittersweet because you get to know some of these guys, and you obviously root for them and relay the action, tell their stories, and then that just won't be around anymore. It's not my first rodeo getting to know guys, and then you don't see them as much. And just the disappointing season it's been, like you have all this stuff set up to be a season where, okay, this player can do X, they do X, and then, they do Y, maybe a little bit of Z. And then it doesn't lead up to what you thought could be from a team concept. It's obviously deflating in a sense, to be quite candid. But at the same time, I go back. I listened. Nate pinch hit for me on the show Monday night, and he had Elijah Garcia on. And Elijah, who obviously has pro aspirations, rightfully so, he'll at least get a cup of coffee and get a sniff from some pro teams. Summing up, encourage its podcast on Rice House Insider for that want to go back and check it. But he said that's life. Life can be disappointing. You still show up, you still work hard, and you still, like in this case on Saturday, you still put the chin strap on and you go out and you try as hard as you can. And I think that is emblematic to me of what this class has been, to try to still set a tone. I mean, there's not momentum for next year. I'm not a big believer in that, but having that type of mentality and still maintaining that type of culture is big. And I think that's what these super seniors have done.
Yeah, and I think, Bloomgren himself has used the phrase leaving it better than you found it. And 4 wins is something that they haven't accomplished yet under his tenure. So getting to 4 wins, I know, is important. I was talking to some folks in Ruston, Louisiana last night, just kind of because it's similar. You have 2, 3, and 8 teams coming into this game. But for Louisiana Tech, 3 and 8 for them, this is going to be the first season they haven't made a bowl since Skip's first year. I think they're going back to 7 straight, and they won the first 6 of those. Versus Rice, kind of on the upswing, not the downswing. You would hope winning this would kind of be maybe, I'm not going to say more significant to Rice, but I feel like Rice definitely has something where they're not playing out the string here. They have a bunch of guys who really do want to win this.
Yeah, and just the nature of that and playing a whole game. Like we've seen like, oh, if they do this plus this, and we've seen the strong start we saw against UAB. That's probably their most complete game. And not coincidentally, that was the game where they started off strong and still had to come back in that game, as Coach mentioned in his presser with us yesterday. But starting strong and then finishing strong, they haven't been able to balance those two. And like we've joked all throughout these previews, get to know our slightly sarcastic sense of humor. It's easy for us up top when we're looking on high. Oh yeah, just finish strong. It's not that easy. 100 components or so go into that, but having that big complete game and getting a big win going into the off season. Again, I stand by. I don't believe in such momentum going into the next season, but it makes those seniors feel good. And Coach Bloomgren always talked about that victorious locker room. And I can only imagine, because I didn't do anything outside of prepping, getting ready for a win, but I feel really good after a win for a few hours. But I can't imagine how that feeling would be if they could get those guys a win going off into their next path here.
Yeah, it's huge. And then, you mentioned the desire to see this team play 4 quarters. The second quarter against UTEP was pretty darn good. 21 points for, I think, the first time in 5+ seasons is pretty good for one quarter. But this season, it's kind of felt like, and we don't dig too deep into the recruiting aspect of college football in this piece, but it's kind of like you could watch a cut up of the 2021 Rice football season, and you take the highlights and you would think, man, how many wins this team has? 10, 11, 12? Are they contending for the conference title? And then you take the other cut up and you're like, wait, they won how many games? This doesn't make sense. And it's somewhere in between. So you're not going to be perfect for Rice this weekend, especially with, unfortunately, Bloomgren called this team a mash unit going into the final week of the season, which, is not an excuse, but it is a reality. And I guess we can say it's an excuse. He won't use it, but it's interesting. It matters. And I think we'll start there. We'll go on to the Rice offense, and we'll start at quarterback. As as the page turns, Rice is going into their 12th game of the season. They have played 11 games. They have lost a quarterback in a game who was not able to return 5 times in 11 contests this year. And they had similar luck last season and the year before. So I don't know what rabbit's foot Mike Bloomgren needs to hold or where he needs to go, what lucky genie bottle he needs to rub. I don't know what's going on with quarterback, but we're going to see 2 very different offenses depending on who is able to go. So Jake Constantine knocked out of the previous game, hasn't practiced at the beginning of the week. They're optimistic they'll get him back, but it could be Luke McCaffrey. Do you have a particular interest? Do you want to see the new guy? Do you want to see Jake go out and have one last ride? What's kind of your feel for the quarterback situation this weekend, and then what it might look like?
It's tough because you want to see both, like, hey, can I have it all? Can you give me A, B, and C also? For Jake to come back at all, that would be just great, because when he went down, it looked bad. And Nate and I were really worried. We were talking during one of the breaks. It was one of those where you kind of turn your head a little bit. And I wonder, just hope for his sake, he can go out strong, even though he's only been here just this season, get to know him just a tiny bit. Would love to send him out a winner. But when Luke came in there, wow, like you saw a little glimpse. I think even though he wasn't as accurate as he would want to be with a full week of prep, or at least somewhat dividing the snaps with Jake Constantine this week, I wouldn't mind seeing Luke this week if Jake can't go too. And sprinkling in, heck, why not see a little bit of TJ McMahon too? But whatever it takes to win, of course. But I like the tools, like we talked about the whole year, that Luke has. His feet, that's one thing that Coach keeps talking about. Nate talked about in our broadcast. Man, he can outrun most. There's not many that can fetch him from behind, if any. So matching that up with the type of West Coast offense tendencies that Rice runs, that'd be the perfect balance. And maybe we see some of that. We haven't seen Luke for extended amount of time, really. Yeah, last week in the desert, but really early on in this season. So now I'm interested to see with about 9 more weeks of practice, and if Luke does get to start. And really, I'm out in Florida, to be candid. I don't know who's starting just yet. I'll know on game day, of course, but I really am anxious to see that and see what Luke can do for a full game, if indeed he is battling with Wiley for the quarterback spot next season. But to answer it both ways, I still want to see Jake go out a winner if indeed he can go.
Yeah, absolutely. I echo both of those sentiments, and I think it was interesting because I was talking to OC Marquez Tuiasosopo on All My Days Are Running Together Monday now about McCaffrey and about, I know, right? And I'm still in Houston. I don't have any jet lag brain to blame it on, but I was talking with Tui and I was asking him about Luke, and I said, so it's been a couple weeks since, because McCaffrey's last game that he started, that would have been, well, you got to go all the way back. He's come in and done some mop-up duty, right? But anyhow, he hasn't been asked to be the guy since early on in the season, and that's given him time to, kind of slowly build up. I was talking to Tui and talking about the difference between playing 6 plays and 60 plays. And he said, yeah, everybody sees the 6 plays when he comes in for his special package. And you're like, wow, this is exciting. Mm-hmm. But it's different when you're a quarterback and you have to run 60 plays, when you have to make the decision of like, I'm just going to throw it away here. I'm just going to take a sack. I'm going to hit my check down guy for 2 yards and get on to third down or punt and live to see another day. That's kind of the next evolution of McCaffrey's game that, we might see this Saturday or we might see next season. But I know the coaching staff is anxious to get a chance to take a look at him again in more game action if we get that. And I think, yeah, everybody is rallied around Jake Constantine and what he's been able to do. So either way, I think we saw what Luke can do with his legs at the end of the UTEP game. Scrambled several times and just took off and changed the game. And I think that's something that could be interesting. It'll be with him. It'll be taking care of the football and not committing turnovers, because that's something for the most part Jake has done really well, except for the Western Kentucky game, which was just a bad day. So that'll be interesting. The rest of the Rice offense is how that stacks up. And it's interesting if you look across the board at Rice and Louisiana Tech on the offensive perspective, they are putting up almost carbon copy numbers of what they've done through conference play. Rice this year is the number 10 rushing team in conference play, and Louisiana Tech so far is number 11. You want to go down to the passing numbers. Rice is the number 10 team in passing in conference play, and Louisiana Tech is number 8. These are both teams that have gone through a couple of quarterbacks. They have probably a dynamic playmaker or two, but they've been pretty inconsistent. So when you kind of look at the pieces on the Rice offense, is there one or two guys left that you kind of are looking for to kind of step up and have a bigger game and kind of be that differentiating piece for Rice this weekend before we flip over to the other side of the ball?
I think seeing more of Cam Montgomery, and not that, I mean, he had a career high effort against UTEP, but
on one carry,
on just that one carry, exactly, and because he's got that quick hiccup speed that we talked about a little bit with McCaffrey that most people in college football just don't possess, and definitely most don't have at this group of 5 level. And seeing Cam, I don't think it'll be 15, 20 carries, but seeing some more of that. And just, I don't know him really well, if at all, but just hearing him in the presser and just seeing how he interacts with the guys and hearing what Coach Bloomgren has said about him and reading his bio and knowing his backstory, that's a guy who's been through it with injuries, and it would really be a cool sense of fulfillment if he could lead them on the ground, because I don't know yet. You're more plugged in this week if Jordan Myers is going to be able to go. I would hate for him not to be able to play in his last game on South Main. We saw Broussard. So, like we kind of joke, and joke's the bad word, but just make everybody healthy and let's have everybody play. Well,
that
not
magic
how it
wand.
works in the real. Yeah, it's not how it works in the real college football world. So I think that would come down to Montgomery, Ottaviano, and then, hey, throw in there, your starting quarterback might be hurt. So if he is able to go, if that's 70, 80%, again, I do not know. I do not know if you're just hopping on, but that might mean more throws for Jay Constantine, or that could mean you get McCaffrey rolling out of the pocket. He's been better when he's on the run. So you tell me who's going to be there, and I'll tell you how they're going to play, like some coaches tell me in the past. And Cedric Patterson too, not to leave out the receiving core. You heard from him yesterday. Man, that guy is. I hope he hangs around a while, because he has been a really treat, knowing just a tiny bit and seeing him develop and seeing the way Jake Bailey has progressed, and hopefully get more out of August Pete too. He scuffled on the last week after having that career high game. So I know I pretty much listed everybody on the offense that I want to see do better, but maybe even see it on the line too. Like, not to leave out my big fella, but Ethan Onianwa. They think a lot about him and his future. Fai Pepe, we've seen him in the blocking back situations. So now, yes, officially, I have listed every position group on
everyone
those,
do better.
Yeah, just all the players.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple things on there, and then so first off, we do have an injury update in every midweek practice update. I'll have that up on our patreon.com/@theroost later today. That section is going to be longer than it has been in a while, so stay tuned there. Hopefully, we'll get a bit more clarity on that front. At least maybe with the running backs, we'll see. And then it's going to be interesting with the Louisiana Tech defense, because you started off with Cam Montgomery, you mentioned Juma, said those are guys that have a lot of speed, and that's been something that's been a difference for this offense this year, is having guys that when they catch it or get the ball, they can get the extra 5 or 6 yards just because they run faster than the other dude. So flipping over to the other side of the ball, the Louisiana Tech defense, the linebacking core is kind of what I've circled in as something that I'm watching closely. Tyler Grubbs, I guess technically is a redshirt sophomore. He came on last year and was a reserve until he wasn't, and kind of stole the job and has kind of been electric. One of the leaders in the country in total tackles. He's kind of their Blaze Aldridge of sorts. He has that sideline to sideline range and just gets after everybody. So him and Ezekiel Barnett, he's a senior. He's been around for a while. Two guys that do a good job of getting guys down in front of them. I have them watch how anybody else that you kind of look at Louisiana Tech defense, that is going to be something that, Rice has to pay attention to when they're building this game plan.
You mentioned the linebacking core. I promise I was listening, but Trey Baldwin was that one you mentioned too. He's got two defensive.
He was the one I didn't. They got a couple good ones.
Yeah, he's pretty much a local product. Golden Triangle, went to Orange, from Orange, but West Orange Stark, and from Trinity Valley Community College up in Athens, south of Dallas. So yeah, they know where to get their players. They have a lot of solid Louisiana connections, a lot of Houston guys, some Dallas guys, and Northeast Texas guys sprinkled in. Tristan Allen on the defensive line. Kiwi Rose, I think that's how you pronounce the first name, defensive tackle. He's from Henderson. You're as plugged in as anybody in Conference USA as far as the beat reporters. Louisiana Tech, they, in the past, and I think what has hurt them this season, there have been a few things, but they haven't been as dominant on the defensive line. That's really where they have been just nasty. They've been solid at times, but they haven't turned games on their heels because of their defensive line. And I think they still have that potential in there to do that, and they've got a lot of talent out there, but it comes down to, like we've talked to so many times this year, fans are probably like, okay, come on, think of another storyline. But when the Rice offense has been good, their offensive line has controlled that point of attack. Now, this is they're nasty in a football nasty sort of way, and for them to be able to control that defensive line, I'll always, maybe it's me being a big fella, but the game is always decided at that line of scrimmage. And on the back end, they turn out NFL quality secondary guys like it's nothing at Louisiana Tech. So I don't pretend to know a lot about their too deep on the secondary, but they traditionally have a lot of talent on that back end too. So it's not a bad defense by any means that Rice is going to face.
Right, and the guy back there on the back end that you got to circle is safety B.J. Williamson. I don't know. I think he was an honorable mention all-conference guy, or maybe a preseason. He was fringe on one of those lists, and it's interesting because if you look at Louisiana Tech's secondary, if you just look at the raw numbers, they're down there at the bottom. They got shredded on the box score, but you look at games earlier in the season. They played SMU, which is going to put up a lot of points. They played Mississippi State, which have they run the ball yet this season with Mike Leach in the air raid? I don't know. So they've given up some yardage, but if you look just at the conference numbers, this is a defense that has been able to be all right. They're top 5 in yards allowed per game. Just looking at conference play only. Of course, have they played Western Kentucky? I don't think so. So everybody who's played Western Kentucky has been knocked down a peg. I don't think they drew them from the East, so that helps. But yeah, B.J. Williamson is safety, and then he's a guy that Rice is going to have to pay attention to. He can be a difference maker, and they're going to try and make their living, hopefully, out on the edges on attacking those corners, which Jay Constantine has done a pretty good job of up to this point and putting the ball where his guys can get it. So we'll flip over to the other side of the ball now to close things out. We'll talk Louisiana Tech and the offense, and that starts with the quarterback position, which, if nothing else, if Rice doesn't have a good answer at quarterback, it's only fair that they do play a couple other teams that are having the same amount of flux too, right?
Yeah, it is. It's wild, isn't it? How, like you mentioned, those similarities, those parallel, I think more between the two offenses, how they have been lockstep there. So, I mean, we know the name Austin Kendall, guy that was, what was he doing? Some kind of sales a few months, like 5 or 6 months before he decided to go over to Ruston, which has been a pretty good quarterback factory. So, he's been at West Virginia and Oklahoma. So when
took a desk job in Dallas, I believe.
Yeah.
And got talked into coming back.
We joke off there, like, choose sports over any desk job, kids. I can see right, folks. Y'all are more successful than me. Don't take any of my advice. But Smoke Harris on the offensive side of things, he's led them in receptions in every game this year. I like what Coach said. Seems like he's been there 6 years, but he's one of those other COVID sophomores that's been there a long time. He can go, and there's always a slot guy that can also play the X and move around the field in that system for Coach Holtz and whoever the OC is for Louisiana Tech. Smoke Harris is on that guy. When I was filling out my charts, Bordy, as you know, I almost did not have enough spots to put all the receivers. They don't have necessarily one alpha dog that picks up just bunches of yards. For like Harris, he has had a good receiving year, averaging about 60 yards a game, but they don't have one guy that's been their threat to get 150, 200 yards knocking on this whatever this table is in front of me at the hotel in Florida. But yeah, I think it's not a tight end offense. They'll put a guy with a hand down every now and then, but they still want to run the ball. It's like Marcus Williams had a career high game a couple of weeks ago against Charlotte. So they're going to play with some tempo, and Owls have to be ready because that they know the same things we do. They've watched the tape that the Owls have been hurting with personnel on defense the last few weeks, and going against Louisiana Tech has been a tough matchup in the past, and be interested to see how they counter some of that.
Yeah, and he's interesting because he, throughout his career coming up, he's never been a volume guy. He's been kind of their big play guy. He's had a reception of 20 yards or more, 7 of 11 games this year, has along a 47. I remember he had I think it was like a 65, 70-yard reception in a primetime game last year at BYU when they played there, where he caught it in the flat and just boom, ran through an entire defense. And I think BYU was top 15 in the country or something at that point. So he's good and he can make you pay. And I think it's going to be interesting with the Rice defense because the secondary, for the most part, has done a pretty good job when it's come to don't let X beat you. We saw that with Traylon Burks at Arkansas. He kind of had a minimal game. I think probably Jacob Cowan got numbers against UTEP, but Jacob Cowing was not the reason that UTEP beat Rice. So they've been pretty good at kind of limiting that one guy. If they can hold Smoke Harris down, it's going to be big. And then their backfield is a bit more of a mixed bag. They've had a couple guys that have come and gone in there. And so Rice, wants to, of course, control the line of scrimmage. We've talked about that. So what they can do, whether it's Marcus Williams, probably going to get the lion's share of the work, or Greg Garner, those two guys are going to be key for Rice to kind of stop. Is there anybody else? I know we ran through the entire Rice offense. Did I miss anybody of note on the Louisiana Tech offense we want to note?
No, I don't think so. You mentioned that, all the big ones. And I mean, passing wise, they're middle of the pack inside Conference USA, close to 260 yards, but their rushing game consistency hasn't been there like they have in the past. Like most of the teams that throw it a lot, it's still about running the football, and they just haven't had that consistency most games. But Williams does have that big play and big game potential down there.
Yeah, and I'm still looking at their depth chart right now. They have 3 oars at the quarterback position. The 12th game of this.
I mean, Allen.
Allen started the last couple. Okay. I believe it's going to be Allen, but we'll see. And he's had a couple spots. He's been there for a couple years. Well, I guess I'm looking at the depth chart. He's only listed as a sophomore. All these sophomores that have been on campus for 4 years. It's confusing, JP.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, sophomores. Yeah,
it'll probably be Aaron Allen. He can move a little bit with his legs, so that's going to be interesting, something to pay attention to. But on paper, we ran through the offensive numbers. These are pretty two evenly matched teams. Defenses have had their pain points. Louisiana Tech on the ground, Rice through the air. It kind of paints up. This is 2 teams that went to overtime last time they played in 2019, had their 2020 game canceled with everything in COVID. So this has the makings of a game that could be a 4-quarter fight if Rice can play 4 quarters, or if they just want to score, a couple touchdowns, 21 touchdowns apiece in the first 3 and then just hold on. However, whatever works, as long as they can get to the W.
Well, along with that, I'm reading in the La Tech notes, 6 of their 11 games have decided or won by 1 possession or less. So
a couple on the final
overtime. Play. Yeah. So Owls have had some close games.
What's the record for overtime games in a season? Nice.
Man, you ask me that, I don't know. I'm doing basketball.
Well, I know. I'm hoping that we don't need to go look it up. 3 overtime games out of 12 seems a bit excessive. So fingers crossed that they win this one in regulation. We're already going to be a little bit tired after our turkey from Thanksgiving, but we'll see. And then we got the offseason. I don't want to get there yet. So we will enjoy this one for as long as we have. We will, and I think that'll be good for us. We'll let you get back to basketball. As always, I like being the little bird. One of these days, I'm going to get you. I'll like FaceTime you or something so you can see my face watching y'all in the booth, just so you're not all alone. You'll have that the Zoom screen coming back. But everybody needs to go watch.
Sponsor that. What we see from the booth, y'all watching us watching something. That'd be very meta here in 2021.
We're very Inception-esque, right? Is that a thing? Do kids know what Inception is these days?
They should. Good. It's DiCaprio. Good movie. Yeah.
Maybe not. I was talking with somebody about Microsoft DOS yesterday and the old stat systems. That's another new one. We could go on a DOS tangent. We won't. we'll shut it down. Yep, go check that out. Go listen to JP and everybody, and we'll come back, at some point in the future whenever we have more Rice football to talk about. But until then, go find us, patreon.com/@theroost. We'll have basketball or football practice notes. We'll have basketball is already underway. Women's basketball, we got everything. We'll have baseball soon enough, which is, if football is ending, I'm saved by the fact that baseball will be here again soon. But we'll sign off now. I'll quit rambling. Thank you for joining us this season. I had a good time. I think JP had a good time. He's finger waving as if he did. So we will see y'all around. Take care. Rice fight
never dies.